In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really crucial and often unseen part of the NIOS examination process. We're talking about the full assessment system for the April 2026 public exams. So let's dive right in.
We all tend to focus on that one big final exam, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder what else is actually going into your final grade? Well, the answer might surprise you, because your final score, it's a story told in chapters, not just on the last page.
The secret, it turns out, lies in a component that happens way before you even sit for your final paper. We're talking about formative and internal assessments. These are the behind-the-scenes evaluations that, honestly, play a massive role in your overall result. Okay, think of it like this. The final exam is the finish line of a marathon. Makes sense. But these formative assessments, they're the checkpoints along the way. They're there to measure your progress, your hands-on skills, and your consistent effort, which gives a much richer and, frankly, a more accurate picture of what you've actually learned.
So you might be asking, how in the world does NIOS keep track of all this data for literally thousands of students? Well, they use a dedicated online portal. This thing's the central hub where all the study centers officially log and submit these crucial marks. Let's take a look inside, shall we?
So, every single study center, or AI as they're called, uses a really secure official process to get into the student portal. They log in with unique credentials given to them by the regional center, which makes sure that all your data is handled safely right from the very first click.
And boom, this is what they see next. This dashboard is basically mission control for them. From here, the center can manage student lists, track fees, and, most importantly for us today, get into the system to start putting in those assessment marks.
Okay, now this is where the process splits into two different paths. First up, let's see how marks are handled for academic subjects, like mathematics or science. This is what's called the formative assessment system.
Inside the portal, it's pretty straightforward. The administrator just heads over to the Assessment Manager menu and picks Formative Assessment from the drop-down list. It's a really clear path to get exactly where they need to go. You can see the system is incredibly organized. The next step is to filter down to the exact group of students they need. So they'll select the academic year, in this case 2025-26 for the April 2026 exams, the course level, and then the specific subject they're entering marks for. Now, here's what's really interesting. Once the subject is selected, a list of all the enrolled students pops up. But look closely, it's not just one column for a grade. There are 5 separate columns for marks. These actually correspond to 5 different practicals or projects, which ensures a way more comprehensive evaluation of your work. And here's a super important point about the system's integrity. As the center enters marks, they're saved automatically. But the real kicker is that once that final submission deadline passes, the data is permanently frozen. It's locked in. It can't be changed or edited, which guarantees the final record is completely secure. All right, let's talk about the second path, vocational subjects. For these courses, NIOS uses a slightly different model. It's called internal assessment. And that little difference in terminology is actually pretty important. So let's just break it down. For academic subjects, you have the 5-part formative assessment. But for vocational subjects, it's an internal assessment, which is just one single consolidated mark for all the practical work. So you've got 2 different paths for 2 very different types of learning.
The first steps are going to look almost identical. The study center goes right back to that assessment manager menu. But instead of picking the first option, they choose Vocational Subject Assessment. It's a small click, but it leads to a totally different way of entering marks.
And just like before, they filter down to the right course, picking the academic year and then a specific vocational subject, like, say, dressmaking.
And here it is, the big reveal. Take a look at this screen. Unlike the 5 columns we saw for the academic subjects, there is just a single column here labeled Internal Marks. This is where the center enters that one consolidated grade, perfectly matching the model we just talked about.
So we've seen the how, but what about the when? Well, for the April 2026 public examination, there is a very specific and very strict window for all of this to happen.
Here are the dates you need to know. The entire assessment period for both formative and internal marks opens on March 4th, 2026, and it closes just a short while later on March 15th, 2026. After that date, the system automatically freezes. No more entries, no more edits. It's a really tight and disciplined schedule for sure.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. To really hammer this home,
Let's look at a direct quote from the official NIOS document itself. Marks, once finally submitted, can't be edited. There's no gray area here. The system is designed for finality, to make sure it's fair and accurate for every single person involved.
Okay, we've walked through a lot of technical steps, but let's zoom out for a second. Why have such a structured, rigid online system in the first place? Well, it all comes down to fairness, accuracy, and upholding the value of a student's hard work.
This whole standardized system means that every student, at every single center, is evaluated on the exact same timeline. It creates a secure, unchangeable digital record of your practical work, which guarantees transparency in grading. And at the end of the day, a process like this is what protects the integrity and the real-world value of the NIOS certificate that you earn.
This online portal is a huge leap forward in standardizing NIOS assessment, no doubt about it. But it kind of makes you wonder, what's next? As technology keeps evolving, how can we build systems that are not just fair and secure, but that can